Hi everyone, and welcome to this introductory tutorial on responsive web design. We're going to be looking at the Bootstrap framework for responsive web design, but this is just an example. There are other frameworks that you can use, and of course you're free to go and research that when you figure out what responsive web design is all about. To get started, I've already created a folder for this part of my learning. I've just called it Bootstrap, and I'm just setting up a test page. I've set up an images folder, and I've just saved a few sample images in there that we'll look at later. So as you follow this tutorial, I recommend that you set things up as you watch. So you might want to pause the video now, set up your own Bootstrap folder, create a sample page. I've just called mine test page, and create an images folder with some images in there as well. Pause the video, get that done. Okay, this is my test page HTML file, by the way. There's nothing in it. It's just the basic skeleton of a web page. Brilliant. So again, if you want to pause your video right now and just create the skeleton, please do so. Okay, we're going to move to w3schools.com, and we're going to come to the Bootstrap section. Today we're looking at responsive web design. I'm very quickly going to explain what that is, and then we'll move into some examples. When the internet started, people accessed the internet through their desktop computers, and the monitors for a desktop computer, nice and big, very easy to see everything on the web page. But as technology has developed, the size of devices has got smaller and smaller. So for example, here we have something that looks like a tablet, maybe a Samsung Galaxy Pad. And here we have something that looks like a smartphone, maybe an iPhone or something like that. So different device sizes are now used these days to look at the same web pages. And we want the web pages to look great on any device size. This is what responsive web design is all about. Okay, so let's move on. This will make sense as we look through some examples. I'm going to go to the Get Started section of W3 Schools, and I'm going to come down to the CDN section. A CDN is basically a content delivery network, and it will allow us to link our website to important files that will help our design work. Because we're working with Bootstrap, we need to link to 3 important files that we can find on the internet. Okay? One of them is a style sheet, the Bootstrap style sheet. The other one is a jQuery JavaScript file. Don't worry if you haven't studied jQuery yet, we will get there. And another one is a Bootstrap JavaScript file. So I need these 3 things to make my own Bootstrap designs work. So I'm going to copy that, Control-C, and I'm going to paste those into the head section here of my web page. Okay. And now, in the head section of my web page, I've got access to these Bootstrap files. Excellent, now we're ready to get started with Bootstrap. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is come to the Grid Basics section and try to explain how Bootstrap works. Basically, in Bootstrap, it will break your device monitor into 12 columns. That's all you've got. You've got 12 columns to play with. You can design rows. So you can have as many rows as you want, but you only get 12 columns. Bootstrap will allow you to have different layouts for different device sizes. Okay? So this 12-column grid system works for any device size. For extra small devices, like phones, the iPhone for example, small devices, for example the Samsung Galaxy Pad, medium-sized devices like monitors for desktops, and there is also a large device size setting for big monitors that some big companies use, or maybe you have at home for watching movies. Okay, so we're going to look at how these work with the Bootstrap grid system. The following is a basic structure of the Bootstrap grid. As you can see, there is a row, and inside the row there is a column. Then we have another row. This is a row, and inside this row we have 3 columns. And then we have another row, and so on, and so on, and so on. Okay? So I'm going to set this up in my body section. I'm going to create a div which has a class of row. This is going to be my first row. And my design is going to have 3 rows. It's as simple as that. And if I put in some sample data into this row, I guess that's not really very thoughtful sample data, but it'll do. So here I have 3 rows with 3 pieces of sample data in each row. So if we save that and have a look at it in Chrome, we've got 3 rows of data here. Okay? Now then, this is where it gets very interesting. Let's go back to Bootstrap and let's see if I can find out what I was just looking at. Okay. Inside each row we have another div section which has a class called col. Col dash something dash something. And let me explain what the somethings are. So inside my row I'm going to have a div which has a class equal to something. Let's just close that div. Okay. So this class is going to be a column, and I want this to work for small devices or any device that's bigger than small. And we'll see how this works later. And I want it to span 6 of those 12 columns. Do you remember in the grid system that we just looked at? The div that I'm making is going to span 6 of these columns. So it's going to cover that area there. 6 of them. And let's put some text into there. Or let's just put something reasonable. Hello. Now inside this row I'm going to make another column. So this row has 2 columns, and each column spans 6 of the 12 columns. And this will work for small devices or devices that are bigger than small. Okay? So it'll work for small devices and medium devices and large devices, but it won't work for extra small devices. It won't work for that. And we're going to look at how that result in a moment. So let's have a look at what this looks like. What will this row look like? I'm going to save that and launch it in Chrome. So now we can see that our first row is broken up into 2 columns. And then we have our second row, and then we have our third row. Okay? Let me just drag this off. We can also see that our device size is pretty wide, so it can handle this layout. But when I start to make this smaller, and I reach an extra small device size, look what happens to this column. This column collapses into a vertical situation. So this is responsive web design. Okay? So I'm going to go quickly back to my design, and I'm going to mess around with my second row. I'm going to say div class equals column small 3. And I'm going to close that div. So of the 12 columns that I have available, I'm going to reserve 3 of those columns for this div. And I'm going to do that 4 times. So this is 3, 6, 9, 12. And in each of the columns, I'm going to put one of those images in my image folder that I already have. So it's in my images folder, and I called it cmx1.jpg. Let's just copy that. This is going to be cmx2. I'm going to copy that. This is going to be cmx3. And this is going to be cmx4. So let's just review what we're doing here. My design at the moment has 3 rows. There's row number 1, there's row number 2, and there's row number 3. The first row is broken into 2 columns, and each column spans 6 of the 12 columns available. And this will work for small devices or any device greater than small. My next row has 4 columns. There's the first one, there's the second one, there's the third one, and there's the fourth one. And each of these columns takes up 3 of the available columns. The maximum, of course, is 12. So 3, 6, 9, 12. And we'll look at this in a little bit more detail in a moment. And within each column, I've just put an image. That's all. So if I save that and run it in Chrome, this is what I get. My first row has 2 columns. My second row has 4 columns. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. And my final row has just 1 column. In fact, I'm not sure if I put a column in there. Okay? Now if I make this, there you go. As soon as the device size gets below small, the images stack on top of each other. So I can still view them in an iPhone, for example. Or I can view it in a different layout on a tablet. There's tablet view, and there's iPhone view. Okay? And that's how responsive web design starts. I've talked enough for today's tutorial. What I recommend you do is create your own project folder for Bootstrap, get an images file and save some images in there, create a test page, come to w3schools.com to Bootstrap and see if you can figure out how responsive web design works.